Imagine standing at the edge of a vast shadowy forest, knowing that somewhere within it lies a force so subtle, so powerful, that it can make the human heart long for you without their even realizing why. This is not about charm in the ordinary sense, nor is it about manipulation that leaves a trail of resentment. No, it is something far deeper, something that touches the unconscious currents within us, the hidden patterns of desire and attention that most people never see. Machiavelli, in his austere brilliance, discovered this not through force, not through flashy gestures, but through a delicate understanding of human nature itself. Consider this: people are drawn not to what is fully revealed, but to what is glimpsed through the veil of mystery. To truly capture attention, you must first become aware of the unconscious dance of longing that lives in every soul. When someone senses that there is more beneath your surface, depths they cannot yet plumb, they are compelled to pursue, to seek, to follow. It is not coercion. It is the awakening of their own inner curiosity, and it begins with a quiet mastery of yourself. The more you know your own shadows, your own hidden drives, the more you radiate an aura that cannot be ignored. Machiavelli's secret was never in controlling others overtly. It was in embodying what Carl Jung would recognize as an archetype, a living mystery that awakens desire without a single command. By stepping fully into your authenticity, while keeping the necessary restraint, you create a magnetic tension. People sense a force in you that they cannot define, yet they feel irresistibly drawn to it. This is the alchemy of presence, the secret rhythm between revealing and concealing, between showing and withholding, that stirs the deepest wells of fascination. To make anyone chase you endlessly, one must cultivate not just intellect or beauty, but an inner gravity, an awareness of the self that is profound, enigmatic, and unapologetically real. When you inhabit this depth, the pursuit becomes inevitable. Others chase not because they are tricked, but because they are drawn into the orbit of something larger than themselves, something they recognize in the reflection of your self-possession. Desire, then, is not manufactured, it is awakened. And in awakening it, you mirror the eternal dance of consciousness, the interplay of shadow and light that stirs the human soul to follow endlessly. And with reverence, imagine for a moment the curious power of not being fully known. In the human psyche, there exists an almost primal drive, a need to explore, to uncover, to penetrate the unknown. We are not simply drawn to what is visible, what can be grasped in its entirety. We are enchanted by the shadows, by the edges of experience where clarity dissolves into possibility. Machiavelli understood this instinctively, though he described it in the realm of politics and influence. Yet beneath his pragmatic words lies a profound psychological truth. Mystery is magnetic. When you resist the urge to be fully revealed, when you allow parts of yourself to remain veiled, you awaken something far more potent than charm or rhetoric. You awaken desire itself. To understand why this works, we must look into the architecture of the unconscious. Carl Jung would say that within each person, there exists an interplay of known and unknown, conscious and unconscious. The conscious mind may perceive the surface, but the unconscious senses what is hidden. When you present yourself with careful restraint, you are no longer merely interacting on the superficial plane of recognition. You are inviting the other person to journey into the deeper layers of their own psyche. This is not mere seduction in the superficial sense. It is the awakening of longing that is both psychological and often sexual in its intensity. There is a hunger in the human soul for what is partially concealed, for the invitation to explore. Consider the dynamic in human relationships. When everything about a person is laid bare, the pursuit often falters. The brain calculates, the heart grows familiar, and desire stagnates. But when a part of you remains unspoken, undefined, and unknowable, something extraordinary happens. The observer begins to invest their imagination, their curiosity, their desire into uncovering who you are. They chase not the person in front of them, but the potential they sense lying beneath the surface. This is the alchemy of mystery. The hidden aspects of yourself become a mirror, reflecting the deepest longings of others, compelling their attention without overt manipulation. There is also a philosophical dimension here. Mystery is a recognition of the infinite complexity of human existence. To be fully known is in a sense to be simplified, reduced. But when you retain the unknown within yourself, you assert a kind of sovereignty over your own being. You are a force that resists containment, People are naturally drawn to forces they cannot control, to entities that hint at an inner world more profound than their own. In this sense, cultivating mystery is not merely a tactic to make someone chase you. It is an act of self-realization, a declaration that your inner life is rich, uncharted, and worthy of exploration. Sexuality, too, is deeply intertwined with this principle. Erotic desire thrives on tension, anticipation, and partial revelation. It is rarely the fully known or fully possessed that excites. It is the tantalizing suggestion, the hint of depth that fuels longing. When you allow yourself to remain partly enigmatic, you invite the other to engage in a subtle psychological dance, where pursuit becomes inevitable. And it is important to understand that this pursuit is not a result of manipulation in the crude sense. It is a natural response to the awakening of something unconscious within the other person, a recognition of an archetypal pattern that stirs their attention and desire. Yet, mystery is not an absence or a performance. It is a cultivated depth. It demands self-knowledge, self-discipline, and an awareness of the rhythms of attention. You cannot simply hide pieces of yourself randomly and hope for fascination to bloom. The unknown within you must be genuine, a reflection of the unconscious complexities, contradictions, and potentialities that define who you truly are. This authenticity is what makes the mystery compelling. Without it, concealment becomes hollow, and the observer perceives not depth but artifice. The magnetic power of mystery arises from the alignment of what is hidden with the truth of your being, a resonance that echoes in the unconscious minds of others. So, as you navigate relationships, encounters, and connections, recognize the extraordinary power of being partially known. Allow your presence to hint at worlds yet unexplored, to suggest depths that cannot be grasped in a glance. In doing so, you do not coerce. You illuminate the natural human drive to seek, to pursue, and to uncover. You create an irresistible tension between curiosity and revelation, a dance that engages the mind, the heart, and yes, the erotic imagination of others. Remember, the greatest magnetism lies not in what is given freely and fully, but in what remains just beyond reach, an invitation to enter a world that is real, profound, and uniquely yours. When you master the art of mystery, you awaken pursuit not through force, but through the subtle, undeniable pull of the unconscious. In the end, the most powerful statement you can make is simple yet profound. What is partly hidden invites exploration, and what is worth exploring is never forgotten. To truly understand the secret of being endlessly pursued, we must turn inward, to the terrain that many fear to explore, the self. There exists within every individual a hidden architecture of drives, fears, and desires, a psychic landscape where the conscious and unconscious interact in intricate patterns. Most people live on the surface, reacting to external stimuli shaped by the expectations and projections of others. Yet, those who cultivate a profound awareness of their own inner world move through life with a gravity that cannot be ignored. Machiavelli's subtle genius was in recognizing that influence begins within. He understood that before one can stir longing in another, one must first be fully sovereign over the self. Self-mastery is not a matter of mere discipline or control. It is the courageous confrontation with one's own shadows. Jung spoke extensively about this necessity. To awaken desire in others, you must first integrate the parts of yourself that are denied, feared, or repressed. These shadows, complex, dark, and often uncomfortable, carry within them an enormous reservoir of vitality. By acknowledging them, by accepting and understanding them, you transform hidden chaos into conscious power. There is a sexual energy in this process, a magnetic force that emanates from those who have explored the depths of their own psyche. Desire is drawn not to perfection, but to wholeness, to the authenticity of a person who has dared to meet themselves fully, even in the parts society would rather ignore. Consider how this manifests in relationships. When someone is fully aware of their own emotions, motivations, and limitations, they exude a quiet confidence that is impossible to fabricate. There is a tension in their presence that others feel instinctively, a sense that this person is a force, not a passive vessel. The attraction is not superficial. It penetrates the layers of the unconscious. People sense when they are in the orbit of someone who is not merely reacting but acting from a place of integrated self-knowledge. They are drawn to the power and stability that comes from self-possession, and their desire becomes intertwined with the magnetism of authenticity. Philosophically, self-mastery is also an acknowledgement of one's own autonomy in the cosmos of human experience. By understanding your drives, your patterns, and your shadows, you occupy your own center. You no longer allow others to define your value or dictate your rhythm. This sovereignty is irresistible. Humans are attracted to what resists containment, to a presence that is whole unto itself. The pursuit begins because the observer senses that here is someone who cannot be fully controlled, someone whose inner life is complex, expansive, and deeply alive. The depth of self-awareness becomes a mirror, reflecting the unconscious longing for wholeness that exists in every observer. Sexual energy, in particular, thrives in this space of self-possession. There is a distinct difference between someone who acts from need and someone who acts from integrity. The former may seek validation. The latter emanates a magnetic tension that invites pursuit without coercion. Sexual desire is most potent when it is aligned with conscious awareness. The individual who has examined their own drives, who knows the contours of their own erotic and emotional landscape, projects an intensity that is both palpable and hypnotic. This is not manipulation. It is the natural effect of someone who has taken full responsibility for their own vitality and presence. Moreover, self-awareness cultivates a kind of strategic patience. When you know yourself, you understand the rhythms of human attention and the psychology of longing. You do not chase, for you are aware that true pursuit arises from attraction, not desperation. Your energy is concentrated, purposeful, and self-directed, which paradoxically draws others into a pattern of continuous pursuit. People are unconsciously compelled to engage with those who have mastered the tension between presence and restraint, action and patience. Self-mastery becomes the underlying current that animates all interactions, giving rise to desire, fascination, and pursuit. To achieve this, one must be willing to confront the uncomfortable truths of one's own psyche. The process is not always pleasant. It requires facing fear, jealousy, insecurity, and suppressed impulses. Yet it is precisely in this confrontation that magnetic power is forged. The individual who has navigated their inner labyrinth radiates a depth and authenticity that cannot be ignored. Others are drawn not merely to surface qualities, but to the resonance of someone who embodies conscious wholeness, the synthesis of light and shadow, drive and restraint. The lesson is simple, yet profound. To make anyone chase you endlessly, begin by mastering yourself. Cultivate awareness of your deepest motivations, confront your shadows, and embrace the totality of your being. Let the complexity of your inner world radiate outward, subtly, without fanfare. Desire follows those who have become sovereign within themselves. The power of mystery is amplified when it is anchored in self-possession. And so, the most compelling force in human interaction is not charm, manipulation, or artifice. It is the gravity of a fully known self. When you stand in your own depth, others are drawn to explore it, to seek the hidden layers, to chase the living embodiment of self-awareness and authenticity. Master yourself, and the world cannot help but pursue the reflection of your depth. Once we have begun the journey inward, mastering our own psyche and embracing the hidden currents of desire, we confront a subtle but crucial principle, the tension between presence and restraint. This is where the art of attraction transforms from simple awareness into an almost magnetic force. It is not enough to know yourself or to cultivate mystery in isolation. The interplay of revealing and withholding, of engaging and holding back, is what creates the irresistible pull in human relationships. Machiavelli understood this in political life. Jung recognized it in the dynamics of the unconscious, and in the realm of human desire. It becomes a force both psychological and profoundly sexual. Presence without restraint becomes mere exposure. When we give everything at once, our thoughts, our emotions, our intimacy, others may initially respond with interest, but desire soon plateaus. The human mind thrives on anticipation, on the subtle unfolding of the unknown. In sexual terms, too, desire is not aroused by possession, but by the tension between approach and distance. The energy of longing grows in the space between, in the subtle gap where the observer cannot fully grasp what is offered. To cultivate this tension requires mastery of self-control, of timing, and of attunement to the rhythms of another's attention. Restraint, however, is not absence. It is not the deliberate creation of distance for its own sake, nor is it emotional coldness. It is a conscious calibration of what is revealed and when, a measured balance that communicates both availability and autonomy. Psychologically, restraint signals self-possession. It tells others that you are not driven by need, that your inner life is whole and sovereign. The unconscious reads this instantly. Neediness triggers anxiety and diminishes attraction, while presence infused with self-restraint evokes fascination, curiosity, and pursuit. There is a sexual tension inherent in this balance, a subtle invitation that the mind and body cannot resist. The observer senses both a challenge and a reward, and their desire is activated on multiple levels: conscious, unconscious, and erotic. Philosophically, this principle resonates with the wisdom of life's paradoxes. We are drawn to forces that are alive, dynamic, and unpredictable within bounds. Just as the sun's gravity holds the planets in orbit while leaving them freedom to move, so too does strategic presence combined with restraint create a magnetic field around the self. Too much rigidity repels. Too much exposure flattens intrigue. The art lies in the delicate dance, the continuous oscillation between revealing depth and holding it back, between drawing in and allowing space. This tension mirrors the fundamental rhythms of existence: attraction and repulsion, light and shadow, certainty and mystery. Sexuality exemplifies this principle in its most tangible form. Consider the dynamic of flirtation, the electric moment when closeness is followed by subtle withdrawal. Desire is heightened when the target of attraction senses both approach and reserve, when they must navigate the unspoken boundaries of the other's inner world. It is in this oscillation, this push and pull, that pursuit becomes inevitable. The one who masters this dynamic does not chase. They allow pursuit to emerge naturally, powered by the tension they themselves generate. They are like a melody that lingers in the mind, neither fully resolved nor entirely absent, leaving the observer compelled to seek the next note. Moreover, the interplay of presence and restraint is intimately tied to the conscious and unconscious psyche. The observer's unconscious perceives the balance of power and autonomy, the subtle indicators of availability and mystery. When calibrated correctly, the tension evokes archetypal patterns: the seeker and the source, the pursuer and the prize. These patterns stir deep psychological currents that cannot be rationally resisted. The conscious mind may attempt to analyze, but the unconscious responds first, pulling the observer toward the one who has mastered the equilibrium of reveal and conceal. To wield this principle effectively, one must cultivate awareness of timing, context, and self-knowledge. Presence is most potent when grounded in authenticity. Restraint is most compelling when it reflects true self-possession. The dance between the two must feel natural, intuitive, and alive. It is not manipulation, but an expression of the individual's inner depth, a reflection of their conscious mastery over both desire and impulse. When done correctly, it produces a psychological resonance that sustains fascination, encourages pursuit, and awakens longing on multiple levels: intellectual, emotional, and sexual. In the grander sense, this principle is a reflection of life itself. Human beings are drawn to forces that inspire, challenge, and remain just beyond easy comprehension. To master presence and restraint is to embody the paradoxes of life: power and vulnerability, openness and privacy, allure and autonomy. Those who achieve this balance do not simply attract attention. They activate the unconscious patterns of pursuit, desire, and fascination that dwell within every human heart. The lesson is clear: the greatest magnetism arises not from relentless availability, nor from cold detachment, but from the dynamic tension between presence and restraint. To reveal and to withhold, to invite and to allow distance, is to create a field of fascination that draws others naturally, irresistibly, and endlessly. Remember, desire is not commanded. It is evoked. Presence without restraint is empty, and restraint without presence is invisible. Master the balance, and you become a force that cannot be ignored, a living embodiment of tension that compels pursuit without effort. In the dance between revealing and withholding, the pursuit is born, and in the pursuit the profoundest currents of human desire awaken. The final truth to hold: fascination thrives in tension. balance your presence with restraint, and you will become the gravity that draws others into your orbit. To comprehend the subtle mechanics of attraction, we must go beyond surface behaviors and enter the realm of archetypes, the universal patterns embedded within the human psyche. Carl Jung taught that archetypes are not abstract concepts, but living forces, present in our dreams, myths, and interactions. They are templates of human experience, resonating with deep unconscious currents. Machiavelli's insight, though cloaked in the language of strategy and power, touches upon this very principle. Influence arises not merely from what you do, but from what you embody. When you step into an archetypal presence, you become a force that others cannot help but respond to, a figure whose resonance awakens the unconscious desire to pursue. Consider what it means to become an archetype. It is not about performing a role or projecting an image. It is about aligning your being with the fundamental patterns that shape human longing. There are archetypes of power, of wisdom, of the mysterious beloved, of the initiator and the unattainable. Each of these archetypes carries a symbolic charge that speaks directly to the unconscious. When you inhabit an archetype fully, you communicate on a level deeper than words or gestures. You evoke something universal, something primordial. The observer experiences not merely attraction, but recognition, a sense of connection to a force far larger than themselves. In sexual and romantic dynamics, this recognition often manifests as intense fascination, desire, and pursuit. The archetype awakens latent urges that are both psychological and erotic, compelling engagement without the need for manipulation. The archetypal presence is inherently magnetic because it mirrors what is already present within the observer's unconscious. Every human carries within them the echoes of these archetypal patterns, seeking their expression in the outer world. When you embody a force that aligns with one of these patterns, you act as a mirror and a catalyst simultaneously. Desire is not imposed, it is awakened. In this sense, attraction becomes less about personal characteristics and more about resonating with the symbolic structures that govern human attention. The observer chases not merely a person, but a living symbol of something meaningful, profound, and deeply compelling. Philosophically, becoming an archetype is an act of transcendence. It requires moving beyond the fluctuations of ego-driven behavior and embracing a deeper, universal aspect of the self. This is not a denial of individuality. Rather, it is the integration of one's personal identity with a force that has timeless resonance. Such integration produces an aura of inevitability. People feel drawn toward you because, at some level, they perceive the alignment of your being with enduring patterns of existence. In this sense, to embody an archetype is to become both autonomous and profoundly connected to the human collective, to stand as a nexus of personal authenticity and universal significance. Sexual attraction, too, is magnified through archetypal presence. Erotic desire is rarely a matter of superficial traits alone. It thrives on symbolic resonance. When you inhabit an archetype, the mysterious, unattainable beloved, the master of self-possession, the charismatic guide, you tap into the unconscious templates that generate longing. Desire is intensified because the other perceives not just a body or personality, but a representation of a deeper, often unacknowledged need. In this way, sexuality becomes entwined with psychology. Pursuit arises naturally, compelled by the recognition of symbolic patterns within the unconscious mind. Yet, embodying an archetype demands authenticity and self-awareness. One cannot merely mimic a persona or adopt traits superficially. Such attempts are hollow and easily detected by the unconscious. True archetypal presence requires introspection, courage, and integration of one's shadows and strengths. It is born from the conscious synthesis of personal experience with the universal patterns of human nature. The more fully and genuinely you inhabit an archetype, the more your presence resonates on multiple levels, emotional, intellectual, and sexual, creating a gravitational pull that others cannot resist. Strategically, archetypal embodiment amplifies the principles of mystery, self-mastery, and restraint. The archetype is, by nature, larger than any single interaction. It allows you to reveal and conceal selectively, to invite pursuit without effort, because the observer responds to a force that is archetypal in scale, not merely human in scope. The psychological pull becomes irresistible, precisely because it operates beyond ordinary calculation, tapping into patterns that the conscious mind cannot fully articulate. This is why some people seem to be endlessly pursued. Their power lies not in overt strategy, but in the unconscious recognition of archetypal resonance. In life and in love, the challenge is to integrate this awareness into everyday presence. To become an archetype is to live with intention, to allow your actions, words, and silences to reflect a force greater than yourself, while remaining deeply grounded in authenticity. It is to communicate on a symbolic level, activating the unconscious currents that compel others to seek engagement. When mastery of self, cultivation of mystery, and careful restraint are combined with archetypal presence, the effect is cumulative. Fascination intensifies, pursuit becomes natural, and the human mind and heart are drawn irresistibly into orbit around your being. The truth is simple yet profound. People do not chase what they can fully define, nor do they pursue what lacks depth and resonance. They chase what reflects something timeless, archetypal, and psychologically compelling. By embodying these patterns consciously, you awaken longing, fascination, and pursuit without coercion. The observer is drawn to the symbolic force within you, and in doing so they chase endlessly, compelled by forces that extend beyond surface attraction into the deepest structures of the human psyche. Remember, the most powerful magnetism is symbolic. To embody an archetype is to align with the universal currents of human desire. When you do, you are not merely noticed. You are pursued endlessly by the unconscious recognition of something greater than yourself. If we have traversed the landscape of self-mastery, tension, and archetypal presence, we arrive at the final principle, the conscious cultivation of unpredictability. There is a rhythm in human interaction, a pattern that the mind unconsciously seeks. Predictability breeds comfort, but it also breeds stagnation. Desire thrives on novelty, surprise, and the subtle spark of uncertainty. Machiavelli's insight into influence, though couched in the strategies of politics, aligns perfectly with the psychological dynamics of human attraction. The mind and heart are endlessly drawn to what cannot be fully anticipated. To make someone chase you endlessly, you must become a force whose patterns cannot be fully mapped, yet whose core remains coherent, consistent, and sovereign. Unpredictability does not mean chaos. It is not whimsy without purpose or caprice without direction. It is the conscious alternation between availability and absence, between engagement and mystery, between revelation and concealment. Psychologically, the observer's mind is engaged in the subtle game of anticipation, sensing that each interaction holds potential surprise. This tension activates both conscious curiosity and unconscious longing. Desire, whether erotic, emotional, or intellectual, feeds on this interplay. The one who is consistently predictable may be comfortable, but they rarely ignite fascination. The one who is skillfully unpredictable, on the other hand, becomes compelling, like a melody that shifts key in unexpected but harmonious ways, drawing attention and pursuit again and again. In sexual and romantic dynamics, unpredictability functions as a powerful amplifier of attraction. Consider the nervous energy that arises when one cannot fully predict the other's reactions or responses. This is not manipulation in its crude sense. It is an organic expression of self-possession, combined with strategic awareness. By maintaining an inner life rich with depth, mystery, and autonomous activity, the individual naturally cultivates novelty. Others are drawn not only to the moments of direct interaction, but to the possibility inherent in what is not yet revealed. Desire thrives in these spaces because it is the unknown that excites the imagination, fuels curiosity, and triggers pursuit. Philosophically, unpredictability resonates with the paradoxical nature of life itself. Existence is never fully knowable. It is composed of a mixture of order and chaos, clarity and shadow. To reflect this in one's presence is to mirror the essential rhythms of reality. Those who are entirely predictable reflect only the superficial patterns of human behavior, offering no challenge to the unconscious mind. But those who cultivate subtle unpredictability invite engagement with the full spectrum of possibility. The mind perceives patterns, detects deviations, and in doing so becomes fascinated, compelled to follow, to explore, and to seek resolution. The pursuit becomes a psychological and symbolic journey, not merely a response to physical or superficial attraction. Sexual energy, in particular, is heightened by unpredictability because it thrives on the tension of anticipation and the thrill of the unknown. The human psyche is wired to respond to novelty in ways that are both neurological and deeply symbolic. Unpredictable behavior, when anchored in authenticity and self-mastery, communicates vitality, independence, and a refusal to be fully possessed. It creates a field of erotic tension that is subtle but irresistible. The observer, sensing that the individual cannot be fully predicted or contained, is drawn into a pursuit that feels both necessary and compelling, a dynamic that sustains fascination over time. Yet unpredictability must be balanced with coherence and integrity. The mind unconsciously craves continuity, even amidst novelty. If unpredictability becomes erratic or contradictory, fascination turns into confusion or distrust. The mastery lies in creating variation within a consistent, grounded framework. This framework is rooted in self-awareness, inner depth, and the archetypal resonance we have discussed earlier. When executed with conscious intention, unpredictability magnifies every other principle. It enhances the magnetic tension of presence and restraint, amplifies the resonance of archetypal embodiment, and turns self-mastery into a living, dynamic force that commands pursuit without coercion. Strategically, unpredictability allows the pursuer to remain engaged without chasing, to invite attention without surrendering control. It is the subtle art of being known without being exhausted, of revealing without depleting the mystery that draws others forward. Every interaction becomes charged with latent possibility. Every silence carries meaning. Every gesture resonates on multiple levels. The observer's mind, craving resolution yet denied immediate comprehension, remains active, alert, and compelled. This is the psychological essence of being endlessly pursued. You become a living tension, a dynamic presence whose complexity is irresistibly engaging. In life, unpredictability is not merely a tool for attraction. It is a reflection of vitality. It demonstrates that the individual is fully engaged with their own unfolding, capable of surprise, innovation, and independent thought. It signals autonomy and sovereignty, qualities that resonate deeply with the unconscious drives of human desire. To live unpredictably, consciously, and authentically is to embody the principles of fascination in their most complete form. It is to become a force that others cannot fully grasp, yet cannot resist seeking time and time again. The ultimate lesson is this: to be endlessly pursued, cultivate unpredictability anchored in authenticity. Surprise, variation, and novelty, tempered by coherence, self-mastery, and archetypal presence, create a psychological field in which desire thrives. The observer is drawn in not merely by charm or beauty, but by the living tension of a mind, heart, and soul that cannot be fully anticipated, yet radiates undeniable magnetism. Desire, fascination, and pursuit are the natural byproducts of a life lived with depth, mystery, and conscious variation.